Hey guys, welcome to another live interview for Health Freedom Iowa. I'm here with two beautiful women in Iowa who are servicing newly birthed and birthing mothers, pregnant women and families, birthing persons in Iowa who want birthing options outside of the hospital. Yes, you can. Yes, you can birth outside of the hospital. We're going to talk about different birthing options available in Iowa, maybe discuss some laws here in Iowa as well, and what your rights are. As a birthing person, I've got Dawn Christ and Melanie Peterson here from Empress Birth Services. And ladies, thank you so much for serving women in our community. I'm a home birthing mom, so all doulas and midwives and birthing attendees are near and dear to my heart entirely. I wouldn't have not gotten through my births at home without my special people. So you guys hold a special place in my heart. And Melanie, your reputation precedes you. I knew about you for years before I even got to meet you. And so you are the great Melanie to me. How long have you guys been doing this in Iowa?
I've been a midwife since 92. I started going to births in 1992. So
my first birth was 2012.
Nice. So what, individually, what captured your heart with being a midwife and really helping women through such a transitional rite of passage time in their life?
I started when I was really young, being interested in birth and like making little booklets for my mom when she was pregnant. And then when I had my first baby, she was born cesarean, even though I thought I planned really well for a natural birth. And I started reading books by Sheila Kitzinger and some home birth books. And so with my second child, found some midwives up in the Dubuque area, some home birth midwives. And I was hooked. I was 19 when I had my home birth and just started there.
Wow. How about you, Dawn?
I had a pretty bad hospital birth with my first, and so for my second, I decided there's got to be a better way. And my husband had not been for home birth until after that first experience. Then he was like, "Well, maybe we can go with this one." And so I ended up interviewing Melanie, and she caught my first home birth baby. And then several years later, she got me to come to a birth with her.
Nice. Nice. Well, it does take a special calling. It almost feels like it is that thing that calls onto your soul that says, be with this woman when she's doing this. And I really am glad and grateful that you guys are doing this, because home birth midwives are really few and far between. They are a little bit harder to come by in maternity care and in maternal care, even though, the statistics say that a home birth is just as safe as a hospital birth, especially in low risk situations. So let's talk about the law a little bit in Iowa and what it looks like for birthing women.
For the mom and families themselves, there are no laws that affect them. You can, of course, choose to have your baby at home. So that's not against, and midwifery is not against the law. Back in the 70s, there was an attorney general opinion that it was practicing medicine without a license to practice midwifery, but that since has been ruled, there's been rulings against that. So we really work in sort of a gray area here in Iowa where there's no laws for or against home birth midwifery.
Yeah. And I believe that a woman has a right to choose to birth her baby under a table, in the parking lot, wherever she wants to birth her baby,
right,
and feel safe,
yes,
because ultimately it is about keeping her feeling safe so she can baby here safe,
Mm-hmm.
So I understand the gray areas. I birthed in a different state and we had kind of the same thing. So that's good to know, because some people don't understand that midwifery is legal and traditional midwifery. Let's talk about that. The difference between traditional midwifery or a direct entry midwife versus a CNM, a certified nurse midwife who works in the hospitals and under hospital policy and insurance companies.
Dawn, you want to do it? You want me to take it?
Sure.
Yeah,
So,
go ahead.
The traditional midwife, or the DEM, is going to be an apprentice trained direct entry midwife. So they're trained like I am, like Melanie was, trained by other midwives, and then you have to do your own study system. You have to do your own process of study. Within the traditional midwifery program, you can be a direct entry midwife or a traditional midwife where you don't ever certify with any certifying body, or you can choose, as Melanie has and as I'm doing now, to be a certified professional midwife, which is a national recognition and a national test and a national certification process, which involves 55 births, a minimum of 2 years of practice and training, somewhere between 2 and 10. I did year 6, and I'm just finishing up mine. And then you take a test that's several hours, around 700 questions. And once you pass that, then you can get a certified professional midwifery certification.
So that's a CPM. That
yes.
qualification.
So in Iowa, the CPM isn't recognized. So some of the direct entry midwives in Iowa choose not to become a CPM, and they're great midwives too. All of the home birth midwives in Iowa are really spectacular. You have great choices here. But you know why some of the women have chosen not to get the CPM, especially with it not being recognized. But Dawn's almost a CPM. She's almost done. And I've been a CPM since like 2000. So.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on that, Dawn. Good luck with everything for sure. So let's talk about birthing options. What is it that you want women to know and families to know, support people to know about their birthing choices and options? Because I know my sister just had a hospital birth and it did not go as planned. And the trauma that women experience, in that setting has been really what I've seen the most of. It's rare that I end up seeing women not have some level of trauma when they leave the hospital. And that's just been, it's really sad to me that women experience that. So yeah, the birthing options, what is it you would want them to know?
I don't think people have an understanding of how wonderful home birth is. We say like, it's fun. Clients will say, oh, I can't wait to have another baby with you because we had such a good time. Like at the grocery store, someone will run into me and say that, like, oh, it was such fun. It's like, we know a world of birth. We know a type of birth that no one else can even have a concept of, if they've only seen things on TV or seen hospital birth, which is quite traumatizing most of the time. With us, you can do whatever you want if you're informed. When we have prenatals and stuff, we talk to you about what you envision and what you want and go from there.
And we become the gatekeeper to make sure that things stay safe and keep you in a place where even when you're in a vulnerable state, you have the safety mechanisms of people kind of just overseeing what's happening and watching the things. We're kind of like the ducks in the water, where on the surface we're all calm and collected, but under the water we're like, oh, okay, what's going on here? What's going on here? Keeping track of everything so that they can have a rewarding and exciting birth experience that fits what they need, but stay safe.
Yeah. And that space that you hold is so important to keep women also in their power. I just posted a video of a water birth at home on my Instagram page, and I had more men commenting and messaging me about that birth than I did women. They were like, we didn't know it could be like that. Oh my gosh, that's so amazing. And I'm like, that could be the norm, guys.
It's
support
normal.
your local midwives.
Yeah, it's normal for us. That's the thing. We see these, it is our normal. It's our everyday, our seeing women give birth to their own babies in the birth pools at their home with their family, with their partners.
Yeah. It's really a beautiful thing. So I know there was a huge uptake, and this is part of why we wanted to have you on today, especially with COVID-19 and everything and all of the hospital restrictions that they were putting on, women birthing alone or having to choose between their doula or their partner, which I could not imagine having to birth in that situation. You guys saw an uptake in home births. So yes. Let's talk about, what you were experiencing with all of that.
We're seeing a lot more late to care ladies, families who have been through the hospital process up to a certain point, and then they are told, oh no, you can't have extra people. You have to attend your prenatal care alone. You have to attend your birth with only one support person, and that person, once they're in the room, cannot leave. You have to have a COVID test beforehand. The idea of separation. So we're seeing more that are middle of the process coming to us.
Yeah. And what are your thoughts on what is happening with women and these hospital policies? I mean, I think it's dangerous for women to have to birth alone.
Or to birth wearing a mask. I can't even imagine. The separation of babies and mothers is insane. And no one recommends that. That's just, the hospitals separating them. And I think that women are choosing it because of both sides of the COVID issue. Like on one side, it's people who want to avoid the regulations, separation with their families. But then there's also people who are worried about exposure to COVID. Staying home is a safe option for them too.
Yeah.
But no, it's ridiculous what they're doing in the hospitals right now.
Yeah. What would be your advice to someone who, I already feel like I know the answer, so it's hard to ask. So I'm like poker face, ask the question. But what would your advice be to someone who's maybe on the fence about this? Because I watched a lot of pregnant women, you know, especially during the height of the quarantine, really they're on the fence. Like, we really would love to have the availability of a home birth, but we're still a little nervous that what if there's a complication?
Sure. Dawn, did you have something?
Well, sure. Interview people. You know, they can talk to other families that have had home births. Interview midwives. See if it's a good fit. Because just because you want to have a home birth doesn't mean it's going to necessarily be a good low risk situation.
Right.
You know, we need to make sure that women are safe, and we do that by not taking people that have risks that put them or us in danger.
Also, interviewing midwives, you're gonna, you know, probably feel a lot better once you talk to some midwives. And of course, if you don't feel safe, that's, you know, then the home birth isn't the way to go. I really feel like, of course, we know it's safer, but you know, you have to deliver where you feel best, and that's where you're going to be the best. So, and that's why of course we see people who've had their one hospital birth and then they realize, oh my goodness, that was terrible, and they right, and then they switch to home birth, and which is such a crazy way of, not crazy, I get it, but it's a backwards way of thinking, because why get all of that emotional and physical baggage from that first hospital birth when you can have a beautiful home birth that first time?
Right. So who is an ideal client for home birth?
You know, someone who's educated, that is a big one for me. Like, if they educate themselves, and of course I say that, and I'm welcoming to the 20-year-old who's pregnant for the first time, who doesn't, you know, who's not, but then we're going to work together to get her super educated, because I love informed disclosure. I love it when people research and make the decisions for their family and their body that's right. And that's why when I was talking earlier about, you can do almost anything, and we'll take, I mean, within certain limitations, we will take most clients if you are informed. So you might think like, oh, I have this going on, so that makes it so I can't have a home birth. Call us and talk to us, because you know, I've done some births that maybe I wouldn't have done, but the mother knows so much and she's so educated that we're working with her, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So the ideal, I mean, I want to say not ideal, but what would be some risk factors that would not be a good option for home birth?
Somebody that has placenta previa.
Okay.
Or, you know, that's when the cervix is covered by the placenta, because that you cannot deliver through. If you've had 3 or 4 cesareans, we're going to have a little bit higher risk, and it's not going to be.
We'll have to talk.
Yeah, we'll have to have a good in-depth conversation.
VBAC is possible through home birth.
Yeah, absolutely.
After cesarean. Yeah.
Sure. Yes. Yes. And I'm a VBAC myself, so that's very dear to me.
Something else that's going to maybe risk somebody out is uncontrolled hypertension.
Or diabetes.
Or uncontrolled diabetes. If you've got diabetes, you know, if you've got gestational diabetes, but you're controlled, that's different than an uncontrolled situation.
Right. Right. And I'm trying to think, that's it? Not like a geriatric pregnancy where, you know, a woman is 35 having her baby for the first time?
No, I think my oldest client was 52. So that's not an issue.
And
women can have babies at 52.
They can.
You know, some women that are really heavy will be told, oh, you're too morbidly obese to be a home birth client.
That's that breaks my heart.
Me too.
Somebody that's heavy can still be a good client for a home birth.
Right. And still be a wonderful mother and a wonderful parent and all of those things. Yeah. It's the discrimination that we see in hospital births too. Wow. You know, again, my sister was in her mid-30s and considered a geriatric pregnancy. And so a lot of extra stipulations about, you know, her going over her due date were put on her. And I watched the whole situation go down. And, you know, it's like secondary trauma because like really feeling for her, and you can't really do what you wish that you could do, or that she can't do for herself what she wished she could do. And it's just such a disempowering situation. How do people get a hold of you, and what's the first step to contacting a midwife? Because I decided in my first home birth, I was like 8 months pregnant, and I said, I'm not going back to the hospital. This isn't happening. And so I really reached out to everybody I knew, and right before I had the baby, got in contact with some midwives, and it made all the difference in the world. Yeah.
You can email the Iowa Midwives Association. Sorry, my phone went funny. There we are. You can email the Iowa Midwives Association, or at gmail.com, Iowa Midwives Association at gmail.com. Also, they have Iowa Midwives Association website. You can find the Iowa Midwives Association on Facebook. When you contact that group, it will go out to all of the home birth midwives in Iowa.
Okay.
And so then we'll see where you live, and usually you'll get contacted by someone. We don't have a lot of midwives in like Northwest Iowa, but usually you'll get contacted back fairly. You can find me on Facebook. I'm all over Facebook all the time.
And go directly to Empress Birth Services on Facebook and message us there too.
Yep.
Wonderful.
Yep.
So I want to give you both an opportunity to share either something you really love about birth, like one of your favorite, like, there's phases, or a birth story that, yeah.
Oh, goodness.
Do you have one, Dawn?
I'll think of one. You go ahead and go first.
Oh, goodness sakes. I mean, of course, then when we're sitting here like, which one do we share? And then in the 10 minutes, we'll have story after story.
Right.
Of course, I just love it when moms catch their own babies, when they come nice and fast and we don't make it. Those are fun stories. When there's a birth where a mom wakes up at 6 in the morning and delivers at 6:30 in the morning.
Those are always fun.
And here
Those
she is.
Yeah, there she is. I mean, I don't know if she's right there, if she wants to talk about her birth
You
story.
want to talk about your birth? Here, come on. I'm going to take the baby.
Birthday for Isla. It was a good birthday for me too.
That was Dawn's
Oh,
birthday.
it was Dawn's birthday.
Yes, it was Dawn's birthday. Yeah, I woke up that morning. I called you guys. Probably waited 10 minutes to call you guys, and started pacing and stuff. But I'm like shouting out that I'm too old for this crap, and decided I'm gonna go into the bathroom after I get my husband up to get things going. And I'm like, I'm pushing something out. I don't care what it is. Something's coming out of me right now. And I'm sitting on the toilet, and Jeremy walks in and goes, should you be doing this on the toilet? She might fall in the toilet. And I'm like, no, but whatever. So I stand up, and she starts to fall out, and I'm like, crap. And so I'm screaming for him to come back because I can't see anything, and all I could feel is like, because my water hadn't broke. And he comes back in just in time to catch her, and he's like, as white as my shirt at this point. And so he calls Dawn, and he's like, Dawn, the baby's here. I don't know what to do.
We gave instructions from there.
Right. And he'd read the instructions that you guys had given him several times, but he just freaked out in the moment.
So yeah, you lose him.
And so from waking up to birth, how long was it?
It was about half an hour, 40 minutes tops.
Wow.
So in our defense, I mean, I live 30 minutes away.
Yeah,
so,
there was no way.
So I did make it for placenta, if I remember right.
Yes.
Yeah. And something else I think that's interesting to reflect on with your story is you had a lot of people telling you that you weren't a good home birth candidate.
Correct. I had the hydronephrosis that came in the beginning when I had the kidney stones, which is what triggered me to go in to the hospital, because that was the worst pain of my entire life. And they told me at that point that they told me not to have a home birth at that point. You know me, I don't care.
Yes.
But they said to have co-management of care. So I went ahead and enrolled at a certain place in the Quad Cities. Just because, people like us, you never know what they're going to try and do. And I was worried about, DHS being called later on. So I went ahead and went through the co-management of care. And from the first minute I walked in there, they were trying to transfer me to the University of Iowa because I was old and fat, is what they said in medical terms. Geriatric pregnancy and obesity was their reasons for it. For the record, I was only 36 at the time. So, I mean, I was only 1 year over their cutoff date for geriatrics. And towards the end, they started really pushing for wanting me to either transfer to University of Iowa, or they started trying to plan a C-section, and I was not having that. I was actually sent to the hospital for, because I had gestational diabetes, supposedly. They sent me to the hospital for an extended NST. And when I got there, they tried to book me into the hospital, tried to gown me and everything. They sent me there trying to get me in for a C-section. It didn't tell me why I was actually going there. At that point, I had my friend Sonia from another agency had called me, and we were just talking, and she stayed on the phone with me the whole time. And then after that, I couldn't go into those places by myself. At this point, I was at the point that I couldn't like back out, because they really would have tried to pull something with me. But I had to take my doula with me or my husband with me every time. And then finally, we got the one midwife there, and this was with the midwives that were certified nurse midwives. And then I got the one midwife involved that you guys know over there, and they were willing to talk to you guys, and that's when things got sorted out. But I mean, I was worried there at the end, because they were pushing so hard for that C-section. And I was doing everything I could to make this child come out. I've never been able to cook a baby all the way, and this one decides that she's going to go a week late.
Well, you can't ever say you never can cook a baby long enough, because she decided to cook just fine. And that's the other thing, like with overdue, we have estimated due dates. The keyword being estimated, that does not mean they are 100% accurate. What is your advice to women? How far can they go before an induction or some other kind of help is recommended?
It's interesting to me, having done this for so many years, what's fashionable in medicine and what's not fashionable, and what people are being tested for and what people are getting induced for, and how it changes. So yeah, late due dates, I mean, especially a few years ago, was the big, I suppose it still is, it's just normalized now.
Yeah.
So clients with us can, we don't have a cutoff date for when you need to deliver by. There are some scientific, studies that show that there is some increased risk with like meconium if you're going past 42 weeks. So after 42 weeks, we like you to get a biophysical profile. Now, of course, we will talk about your choices and how you want to do that if you get to 42 weeks, but you'll continue care with us. We won't drop your care, but we will want more monitoring after 42 weeks of pregnancy.
And we'll want to see you a little more often, just to make sure.
We start seeing you weekly, but most of our clients, the majority of our clients go 10 days late. That's the average.
Right. Is that first time moms or after most?
That's overall. That's overall. So I'd have to get out my statistics to see, but I mean,
when you guys
generally, if a mom's gone 10 days late with a previous pregnancy, she'll go 10 days late. That's a pattern that we see. I'm not with her, of course, but yeah, it's a pattern we see.
Well, when you guys were telling me that, I'm sitting there like, no, I'm gonna break you guys' little tradition here. This isn't gonna happen. Like, I'll be early or right on time. Nope, I fell in your guys' line.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, and we have that magic too, the suggestible, if we say you're going to be a week late, you might be a week late. It works that way.
Yeah. Our suggestion. Yeah.
Yeah.
What is it that you would really love women to know about birth? I mean, how we're brought up in this culture, in this society, and the cultural conditioning that we have about our bodies and about birth and what's supposed to be and how it's supposed to go. And I mean, sometimes we just need some clarity about our purpose within in that rite of passage. And I would just love to glean a little bit of wisdom from you of just like a perspective on how maybe there's a different way to think about birth.
Birth can be fun.
Yeah.
Birth can be a good time. We had a birth earlier in May, and I was just watching the video from it yesterday, and she's pushing this baby out, and we're cracking jokes, and she's laughing, and I mean, it was a fun time.
Yeah. And it's empowering, and it's strong. The things that we do with the media, like television and movies, birth being scary is good for ratings. But it also gets into our subconscious about how birth is, because we're not exposed to it every day the way like Dawn and I are. We don't see it all the time. And we start to think that that's how birth is supposed to be. Imagine if we were shown images of powerful women giving birth to their babies. Yeah, and it's such a woman's rite of passage, and you miss out on a lot of it being drugged. And you know, there's a whole book about birth as an American rite of passage. That's the name of the book, about how some of the things they do in the hospital is exactly what they do, like in hazing rituals, like taking away your clothes, having you restrained to a bed. All of those things take away your power.
Wow. Wow. So yeah, there's so much I could say about that, but I will just stay present with you guys. What's the name of that book again?
Birth of an American Rite of Passage. I believe it's by Robbie Davis Floyd.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay. Very interesting. That's a great book that you can read. Are there any other books or things that, you know, educational resources that you'd like to direct women to who would be, you know, so they can empower themselves and hire you as a client, as a midwife?
Reading anything by Ina May Gaskin or Sheila Kitzinger are really good places to start. Hensi Goer has some good books. They're a little bit more dated now, but they're still really good information to really teach you about yourself. I think natural family planning is a great place to start to learn about your own body from the beginning to the end so that you know how it works, which gives you more power.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I was thinking about talking about what we do for normal prenatal care.
Yeah.
If we have an opportunity for that.
Absolutely. Please do. Yes.
Well, because I think folks think that we just walk in, although that has happened occasionally where someone calls us, like, I think I'm in labor. Can you come catch my baby? But most, 90%, most of the time, we are providing prenatal care from the beginning of your pregnancy when you call us and we set up an interview and we meet. And then we're going to be meeting with you monthly for usually hour to hour and a half long visits. We get to know you, we get to know your family, we get to know so it's not just also like this quick in and out where we only spend 5 minutes with you.
Yeah.
You see our homes, we see your homes, we see each other's families, we become friends. And while we're doing this, we're also doing things like taking your blood pressure, checking the baby's position, seeing how you're doing mentally. But we get to know you really well and you get to know us really well. And it's a really tight relationship. We see you for an hour a month until the end of your pregnancy when we start increasing the visits. Like we talked about, if you hit 40 weeks, we're probably seeing you weekly at that point. And then we come to your birth. We have tons of equipment. It's, you know, it's the equivalent of a hospital a small hospital that we bring in. And you have supplies that you would get. We have 4 birth tubs. You don't need all 4, but you'll probably get one of those if you want.
Or sometimes you set up the birth tub and then don't get to use it.
You would not believe how often that happens.
Yeah.
Where we're like, Dad, just give it up. Come on over.
Yeah. Usually the dad's very busy trying to fill up or set up a birth tub. And we're like, nah, she's going now. Yeah, and especially in a case like yours where the baby comes so quickly. But we have birth tubs. We'll stay for your birth. We stay for 3 hours after. We do a basic newborn exam. And then we'll be coming to visit you the next day, at 3 days, a week, and 6 weeks later, or you'll come and see us at 6 weeks. And then you'll continue to have visits with us at parties and get-togethers. So it's not just this like walk in, do the birth and leave. I mean, you're getting to know us very, very well through the course of your pregnancy and birth and postpartum. And we're always able on call for you. So you can call us or text us.
We get a lot of phone calls after birth relating to questions for birth, you know, how their body is healing or how breastfeeding is going, or just their mental state. Like, hey, I'm really struggling today.
Yeah, that's so great, because I think, you know, the support systems of women, you know, we aren't meant to birth alone. It's kind of like, you know, the elephant circle. We're not meant to be abandoned even after we have a baby. And I know that some of the biggest shocks to this rite of passage of motherhood comes after the baby is born, right? The breastfeeding, the crying infant, the trying to meet their needs, trying to heal yourself. And that can feel really overwhelming, almost just as much, if not more, than the actual event of birth itself. So thank you for being so on call and so there and so ready and available to women. And that doesn't sound like the service you get when you have a hospital birth. I know in my experience, I had 2-hour meetings with my midwife every single time. And any question I had was answered. I felt completely safe. I felt completely educated. And my favorite topics were to discuss were the complications. And they were so wonderful to explain to me, you know, biomechanics and their training and how they, you know, would care for me and the baby should there be an emergency, and like when to go to the hospital. And so any fear that I had was totally dispelled. So yeah, and then the only thing left to do was not have fear, but to have fun and have a baby. I mean, that is exactly how it can go. Yeah.
Yeah.
In the hospital,
Exactly.
you don't have your midwife making you breakfast after you have a baby.
I'm a terrible cook, but
It's okay.
Hey, your toaster
I
works
hadn't
just
had
fine.
real food in how long because of that stupid diabetes diagnosis. I was happy for anything.
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
That's so great. Well, I really love that you joined us today. Is there anything else that you would like to share?
I think it might be important to. A lot of women always worry about, well, what if something goes wrong?
Okay,
I know
so
that
to
was
address
something
some of
that
the
I worried about. And
complications,
so
yeah.
you guys had a very clear plan, like from the get-go. This is what we're going to do if something goes wrong. Can you share that for people?
Sure, go ahead,
Done.
Mary.
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, during your pregnancy, we do have you write a plan. And most of the time so we have about a 7% transfer rate. So that means, you know, so if you choose to go with us, and I think that that's fairly common for most of the home birth midwives in Iowa. I'm not trying to make it like, I mean, we are great. I'm really good at this, but all of the midwives in Iowa are great. You know, so you have a better than 90% chance of having your successful home birth. So in the very small percentage that transport in, most of those, almost the majority of those are non-emergency. So when we say something goes wrong, it's usually a bigger picture. The number one reason we transport in is maternal exhaustion. So a first time, right, with like a first time mother. So you get a mom, it's her first baby. She's just been laboring for days, and because it can take a little longer with your first baby. And we've tried everything. Also, sometimes it's just a scene like mom's tired and maybe the baby's heartbeat starting to show that baby's tired too. And we think maybe it would be safer at that point to go to a hospital where there's monitoring.
Yeah.
So that's usually why. It's extremely rare for us to transport in some sort of true emergency. We usually have parents go in their own car. So it's not a scary thing. But of course, we train in emergencies and we study them and we drill them and practice them. You do fill out a form during your pregnancy that tells us like what hospital you'd want to go to and where you'd want your kids to go to, sort of a plan that we have hung up so we can know like where we're going, the route to the hospital, that sort of thing.
And if you do have to go, and if outside of COVID, we would normally go with you.
Yeah, we can't right now. We can't. Well, I suppose if they wanted not their partner there or something, but that would be terrible. So, but as a general rule, we would accompany and stay with you, just like if you had delivered at home.
And then we would continue the postpartum care afterwards after you're home. That doesn't stop because you delivered in the hospital.
Right. That's very supportive. Thank you for doing that. I mean, I've had such a lack of postpartum care in my own births that I really see the need for it, maybe even more so than an average person. And so, you know, you show up and you do the laundry and you cook and you clean and you belly bind and you wrap babies, you know, and then you just like, it's all part of, you know.
We definitely need more postpartum doulas out there for sure.
Don't worry, I'll be working on that certification soon. So
good.
Yeah, it's just something that's so near and dear to my heart. Let's take like a breech baby, for instance, right? Breech babies it's often, you know, told to women that that's an automatic C-section. They don't deliver breech babies in, you know, whichever hospital. And most people today delivering babies or catching babies haven't seen a breech birth. So they don't know that it's actually possible naturally. That would be considered, you know, a complication or some kind of, you know, birthing challenge. What is a CPM's take on breech?
Well, breech is a variation of normal.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to remember that as that variation of normal, we do need a little more training with that. So we do continuous training to learn the mechanics and the cardinal movements of breech, like we know, and learn the cardinal movements of a vertex delivery.
Right.
So having said that, there are more risks with a breech delivery.
Okay.
There are more things that could have some complications with that. So you have to have a couple things that we look for. You know, what size is your baby compared to your pelvis? Is your baby really big? Are you a first-time mom? Or are you a mom that's had multiple babies? What position are you in? How long do we know about it? That kind of, those are some of the things that we look at. Melanie's got things to say. I can tell. She's antsy.
Oh, no, it's funny she brought it up. We've just had, we've been put into the breech world a little bit lately. So it's just making me smile to think about some of that. You know, and again, it goes back to, of course, in the moment, it's difficult to make informed disclosure if suddenly your baby's breech. We do try to make sure that your baby's in the head down position during your pregnancy. If we were discovering that your baby was persistently breech, we could talk about version, which is turning your baby externally. We could talk about your options. And of course, if someone has informed disclosure, you know, we talk about the risks and benefits of delivering, avoiding a surgical birth, of course. And what the mom wants to do, and then going from there.
Yeah.
And if someone's in labor and their baby turns to breech, we're going to say, you know, let's stop everything here. We need to have an actual discussion.
Yeah.
So that mom and dad and whoever, or parents, can say, yes, we understand these risks. Yes, we're okay with these risks. We have the option of going to the hospital, so they can make an informed decision that is right for them.
Okay, good. Cord clamping. Let's talk about that real quick. The benefits.
What is that? What's cord clamping?
I don't know. I mean, you know, you lotus birth. So
yes.
Yeah. What are the traditional viewpoints of cord clamping? So I know not every culture in the world necessarily did cord clamping when, you know, midwives were attending all of the births 100% of the time in all of the human history forever. So up until recently. So let's talk about how you view that.
Well, we're going to wait usually unless there's something wrong. I can't even remember the last time we had to clamp a cord. Because I mean, we say it like in case of an emergency, but it's extremely rare. So we wait until, well, you don't have to clamp the cord if you choose to have a lotus birth. We've had parents choose to do that. And in fact, in my early years, we even did one at a hospital when I was still learning. We did a lotus birth at the hospital, which was pretty amazing. We had to pull a lot of strings and convince a lot of people. And for people listening who don't know, a lotus birth is when you never cut the cord and you wait for it to fall off naturally on its own. So that's an option. Some people burn the cord in a ceremony with candles, a cord burning. But for us, we will let you choose what you want to do. And of course, during the pregnancy, we'll talk about that. It'll come up, like, what do you want to do with the cord? What do you want to do with the placenta?
Yeah.
And then we usually wait until the newborn exam to cut the cord. Sometimes if the mom's taken a long time to deliver her placenta, and by long time, I mean hour and a half. So I just want to put that in perspective, because at the hospital, it's like 10 minutes and they're like, it's been a long time. And I was like, no, it's not. So then we might consider, just for positioning reasons, then like maybe dad can have a turn holding the baby and mom can maybe try squatting to get that placenta out.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. I mean, there's, that last blood transfer, that last blood transfusion through the cord and into the baby's body, that the health benefits are just, there's just so much good for the baby. And that it's,
I mean, a lot of things that people ask us about aren't even part of our practice. I think that they are basing, because they're basing what they know about birth from hospital births and television births. So something like, are you going to wait to clamp the cord? Like, we wouldn't even consider clamping the cord. cutting the
Or
cord.
are you gonna not break my water? No, it's gonna be a rare situation that we're gonna break somebody's water. It's gonna be a rare situation that we're gonna strip somebody's membranes. It's gonna be a rare situation that we have to do a lot of vaginal exams.
We've never cut, sorry, my phone's dying. Oh, there I am. I have never been at a birth in all of my training or in my working where we've cut an episiotomy. So I have a 0% episiotomy rate.
And our suture rate is very low. Our tear rate is
Yeah,
low.
that's true. Right. So thank you for saying that, Dawn, because the reflection, people would think that we were having lots of tearing then. And of course, a natural tear is better than episiotomy. You'll heal better. It'll go the right angle, the correct angle for the birth and for your body. But we don't see a lot of tearing.
Yeah. Why is that?
Women are encouraged to choose the position that they birth in. We try to help women to go slow, so they're not barreling those babies out. And sometimes the babies barrel out and there's nothing you can do about it. But if given the option, we try and remind them, okay, let's breathe. Let's try and blow this baby down. Let's breathe the baby down. So they're not pushing. We're not doing purple pushing very often. We're like, hold your breath and push. It's more of a, let's just breathe the baby down. Let's let your baby do the work as much as possible. Because people kind of forget in labor that mom is laboring, but baby's also doing a lot of work.
Yeah.
And by letting baby do that work, you're going to get a better position. If mom's able to move positions, she's going to help that baby get where it needs to be. Here we do the hand movements.
Sure, they have the fetal ejection reflex that you've probably heard of. Sorry, my battery was dying, so I had to do all sorts of refiguring here.
That's okay.
And
now you get another view of me here in my house.
We also have the option of giving pressure, like parental pressure if mom wants it.
The fetal
ejection.
Ejection reflex. If we wait and don't encourage that sort of purple pushing. Now, sometimes, especially with a first-time mom, they might need some direction on how to push. And we definitely find that can be helpful for a first-time mom. But often women, if just left to their own devices, will get that sort of, and the baby will be born. There's no need to do that sort of like, now you're 10 centimeters. Well, first of all, we're probably not checking you that much. And by checking, I mean vaginal exams.
Yeah.
Although a vaginal exam can give us a lot of information if things are taking a long time or we're wondering like what positions you should get in. So they can be helpful at times, but we don't do very many of them. You're 10 centimeters, you're going to have that fetal ejection reflex and your baby will be born. So we don't, and the baby comes naturally. We don't see the tears. Also, if you're giving water birth, you'll have that counter pressure.
Yeah, the water birth was really nice for that. I just relaxed and there she was, it's like, it's pretty amazing how that works.
It forces us to be hands off.
Yeah. And I often look at animal husbandry and I see how animals, a lot of times, the farmers or the vets know to kind of leave the animal alone, to let them birth and have their process. And they know not to take the babies away from the moms right away. And I thought, wait a minute, animals get better treatment than we do. In birth in our society right now, looking at hospital birth versus raw birth at home.
Barney's midwifery calls that the art of doing nothing.
The art of doing nothing. And I think we are such a reactionary society. We feel like we have to always be doing something, where sometimes we have to just breathe and just let the process and just go along for the ride.
Oh, I mean, and I do animal husbandry as well. And even just for me to watch an egg hatch without touching it. For the 30 hours or so that it takes for an egg to go from a small hole to hatching, it makes you crazy. And you can hear that little duck in there peeping. You want to help, and I think that with things like nursing and medicine, they are trained to help. And in most situations that aren't birth, most medical situations, helping is good. Pain relief is good. Intervention can be good when it's a disease process, but birth is not medicine. Midwifery is not medicine, and it's a natural unfolding. And so that's why they need to be separated. And that's how things like Lamaze came about, because we were giving women drugs, and then they were like, well, if she just breathes, then she won't need those drugs.
Right. Right. Well, there are so many methods out there now. There's hypnobirthing. There's the Bradley method. There are so many diets even for women. Is there one particular nutritional protocol that you have women follow during their prenatal care with you?
No, just eat well. Eat lots of fresh fruit and vegetables.
We do keep track. I mean, I would love it if it's not nutrition, but exercise. I'm kind of an exercise, what's the word, fanatic. I love exercise, and I really want ladies to be exercising while they're pregnant, walking 2 miles a day if you can, staying fit. As far as nutrition, you know, because I was raised like a home birth hippie midwife, I was always a fan of the brewer diet, but I myself am a strict vegetarian. So I understand when folks come to me with their special diets and we work with them, we'll have you keep track if you feel comfortable doing so. We'll have you keep track of what you eat for a week and bring us that, and we'll talk about what you can do to improve what we,
your nutritional content.
Yeah, we'll break it down and look at the nutritional content and work with you that way, and work within your own diets, because everyone's going to want, depending on where your family's from, whether you're Norwegian or German or Mexican or wherever you're from, you're going to have your own sort of foods that you eat. So we're going to want to work with that sort of traditional foods for your comfort, and then get the nutrition in there too. Of course, I like to see high protein.
Yeah.
Lots of water, lots of good herbal teas.
Yeah, I mean, I could rack your brains all day about birth, because this is always just such a fascinating conversation. Birthing options. There are birthing centers. Now, I know we don't have any of those.
No, we used to. I'm going to shout out to Nancy Jip, who used to have a birth center in the Quad Cities, but that got shut down, and it was really a
one in Des Moines.
Is that one still open?
It is, and it's connected to.
Oh yeah,
a Des Moines hospital. It's a birth. It's the.
I don't remember what it's called.
Cosette Boone is the certified nurse midwife that runs it.
Well, shout out to the Des Moines Birthing Center.
Yes, yeah.
Because
Cosette's a great
ones in Iowa.
That might be it for Iowa's birth centers, though.
Wow, yeah.
And, you know, I'm a home birther, so even if there was a birth center,
I wouldn't go.
Yeah, I wouldn't go. I mean, I totally support, especially like in Davenport so I worked at the birth center in Davenport, and that was 20 years ago, at least. Yeah, because I had my baby Rhiannon, who's now a grown-up woman, was coming with me to that. Most of those people who were delivering there, most of the clients there were like Palmer students. And so they were maybe living in housing that was like, it wasn't their home. They were in like student apartments.
Yeah.
So I could see why maybe like a sweet birthing center would be nice.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but most people don't even know what those are, that they're another option in other states. Those are options, which would.
Well, it's misleading too, because the hospitals call and you know what, there are some great midwives at the hospital. I'm not completely trying to knock them. There are a couple of midwives that are really outstanding, especially in the Quad Cities, who are so wonderful to us. However, to call your birthing floor birthing center is misleading.
True.
And that's not them. That's the hospital.
Right.
Yeah. So they're calling it a birth center, but a true birth center is not attached to a hospital.
Right. It's like a freestanding birthing center.
Yes.
They call it. Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, I am almost out of time, but I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to this mix of conversation on the rabbit holes that we've gone down of birth talk. But I would love to just talk all night about this.
Well, you know, I think that before we go, you know, interview some midwives, give a phone call, ask about home birth. People will tell you that it's not an option, or that you can't do it because of this reason or that. You know, interview us, interview the other midwives, and we'll give you the other midwives' numbers too, because we want you to feel, like I was saying earlier, the most comfortable. Wherever you're most comfortable is where you're going to do the best. So we'll interview midwives and talk to them. You can do it. If you're choosing a hospital birth, don't go in too early. That's always,
pretend that you're not in labor for as long as you can.
Yeah,
Also,
stay home. Stay
The
home as long
Iowa
as you
Midwives
can.
Association has meetings several times a year, and there's always a public portion at the end of the meeting. So
Oh.
follow the Iowa Midwives Association Facebook page, and you can find out when those meetings are and come and meet the midwives.
Yeah, that's a great way to meet us all. Come to one of the meetings. You'll have all of us sitting around together. Yeah.
I'd be in heaven. If I just show up and I'm a groupie, just don't mind me, okay? I'll
You know,
just,
it happens all the time.
That's great. That's great. Well, Dawn and Melanie, thank you so much for being on today. Give your questions to Empress Birth Services. We'll provide the Facebook link to their page in the Iowa Midwives Association in the comments below, and we will see you next week on Health Freedom Iowa Lives. Thank you
for
so
having
much,
us.
ladies.
Thank
Have a
you.
great night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.